Hey everybody, Chris here from It's Mead Made, and today I am going to show you how to create a custom profile in Cura. So let's go ahead and get started. So it seems like the latest trend when it comes to these 3D printing companies is to create their own slicer softwares. Which, it's cool because some of them are really nice and they have some really unique features in them. But at the end of the day, it's really just Cura reskinned. But they've taken out some of those crucial settings that we want and we like to have control of. But the thing is when you go into Cura, you're going to see that those printers aren't on the list, and you can't just easily add a profile of that printer to be able to start slicing in Cura. They're really trying to force you into their specific slicing software. So today is all about me showing you how to create a custom profile so you can use Cura to be able to slice and print with those specific printers. Now, today I am going to be using two different printers that are not on the list. The first one is my FlashForge Adventurer 5M Pro. And then I'm going to be using my new Creality K1 Max. These two are not on the list when it comes to the print profiles in Cura. So we're going to add them. Now before we get started, I do think it's important to mention that some of these slicing softwares that come with your printers are specifically designed for that printer, which means it's optimized and it actually is getting the most out of those printers. So when we switch over to Cura, we might not have all of the settings in place and have it perfect, so it might not be as fast as it is using the specific slicer that the printer comes with. For example, we're going to be using the K1 Max, and using Creality Print, I can print wicked fast with my K1 Max. But when I'm in Cura, it doesn't print as fast. Still, it does print fast, just not as fast. So it is one of those things that you're going to have to really refine all of the settings in Cura to be able to create the perfect print profile. Now, the one thing I do want to mention, I have set up chapters in this video for you, so you can skip ahead if you want. But I will say, these two methods that I'm going to show you, I honestly think you should just watch them both, because they are a little bit different, and depending on the slicing software that your printer is supposed to have, it might be more beneficial to go with one versus another. So that being said, let's jump to the computer and get into Cura. Alright, so before we get started, I figured I would show you the exact version of Cura I'm in, and I'm on the most up-to-date version, 5.6.0. So if you have an older version, it might be time to update, and if you have a newer version, well, you're looking at this in the future. So I've actually got the profile to my longer LK4X printer right now. And what we're going to do is, first we're going to add in my FlashForge Adventurer 5M Pro. And what we're going to do to add a printer, we just go right here to add printer. Then we can see if it is an Ultimaker printer or a non-Ultimaker printer, which the vast majority of people are going to be clicking this. Now, you look right here, you're going to be able to see you can add a network printer, or you click down here and add a non-networked printer. And this is where you can see all of the different types of brands of printers. And there is a lot. But even with this many printers, there are still some that are not in Cura. So, for example, we're going to go to FlashForge, so we'll go down to F, FlashForge right here, and all they have is the Dreamer NK. And I've got the Adventurer 5M Pro. So I want to go ahead and add this. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go all the way back up here, and underneath the Ultimaker, it's going to start right here at Custom, and then it goes alphabetical. So I'm going to click on Custom, and it's going to give me a custom FF printer or a Smoothie custom printer. And I'm going to just go ahead with a custom FFF printer. And this right here, once you click it, you can actually name your printer. So I went ahead and named this my Adventurer 5M Pro. And all I'm going to do next is click Add.
So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and put in our width, depth, and height, or our X, Y, Z. So if I actually move this dialog box over, and we can see right now the build volume is 100 by 100 by 100. And for the Adventurer 5M Pro, I know that the build volume is 220 millimeters squared. So it's going to be 220. And then once I type in that, you can see how much bigger it gets on the X. Then I type in 220 again, and you can see there is my X and Y build volume. Then the height, which is 220. There we go. So the next thing is our build plate shape. Now, we're going to go with a rectangular one. And now, if you have one of those Delta printers, this is where you would go to elliptic. And because the build plates are actually round, but we do not want that, we're going to go rectangular. So here we go. Then, origin at center. Now, I leave this unchecked. Heated bed. Yes, this does have a heated bed. So if your 3D printer has a heated bed, you want to check this. Now, heated build volume. Now, this one is very specific to certain printers because some printers actually have a heated chamber. So if you have like a printer like, say, a Cheedy Max 3, like that actually has a heated chamber for you. And that is something where we would actually click right here and put heated build volume. But for my Adventurer, I do not have a heated build volume. Then we're going to go to G-code flavor. This is the different types of G-code that we can use. Now, what we're going to be using is Marlin. Now, I'm not going to go into depth all of these different types because it really gets into the weeds. But if we're just trying to get something up and running, we're just going to go with Marlin. Now, I like to just leave these by default when it comes to your X minimum, your Y minimum, your X max, and Y max. Now, I'm just going to leave them like this, but the one thing that we are going to change is our gantry height. Now, the gantry height is not the actual height of our 3D printer build volume, and that's what it just puts it in there. The gantry height is actually the height of your entire hot end. So I'm just going to go ahead and put, say, 35 millimeters, because I'm going to guess. At the end of the day, when you have one of these XY core machines, this is not really that important. I've changed this to different sizes, and I have not gotten any different results. But if you leave it at the highest right here at 220, it's going to think, okay, this thing is so big, it cannot actually print. And I have had issues when I just leave that. So I'm going to just bring this down to 35 millimeters. Now, the number of extruders, if you have a printer that has dual extruders, this is where you're going to go to the drop down and click those. Then we have apply extruder offsets to G-code, and I'm just going to leave this checked. Now, the last thing, we actually have all of this specific G-code to where it does a little bit of a prime, and it homes the bed and warms up and things like that. And I am going to go ahead and leave these by default. Now, the next tab we have our Extruder 1 tab. Now, if you have multiple extruders, you're going to have multiple tabs. So if I come back here and if I drop down to 2, and you're going to see I have 2 extruders now. But I only have 1 extruder for this Adventurer 5M Pro. Now, if I jump over to my extruder, I can see what my nozzle size is, and it is a 0.4 millimeter nozzle size. Then we have the compatible material diameter, and this right here is the thickness of the filament you're using. So what I'm going to be using right here is a 1.75 millimeter filament. Now when it comes to the rest of these, I am just leaving them by default because I don't need to change any of these. And I'm also not putting any specific G-code for my extruders. Now, all I've got to do once I've done that is click Next.
Alright, real quick, I just have to say thank you. Thank you to all of these amazing people for supporting me on Patreon this month. If you want to be like these awesome people, I will have a link down in the description where you can join the Patreon and get exclusive access to all of my behind the scenes and my private Discord servers where we talk about 3D printing, painting, and everything in between. So, if you're interested, the link's below. Other than that, let's get back to this video.
So now I have my Adventurer 5M Pro Cura settings. Now, this is the thing. We can just start hitting print on this and it should print just fine. But when you're dealing with these XY core machines, you're going to have to tweak these. If not, it's going to be just like a typical old 3D printer that's going to be printing very slow. So if you want to take advantage of these speeds, there are some things that you're going to have to change in here, and you're going to have to do some experiments and testing. Now, I went ahead and jumped over to the FlashForge website to look at what my settings are for my Adventurer 5M Pro. And this is where you can actually look at your settings. So go to the manufacturer of your printer and look at those settings and see what you can do about the speeds of your printer. So I'm going to jump back into Cura. And then I'm going to come over here. So I'm going to go down to speed. Now when it comes to my print speed, it can print at 300 millimeters a second. So I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to set this at 300 millimeters a second. So if I come down here to my travel speed and I change that to 600, then I can look at my max acceleration. Now when it comes to that, I am going to have to go to my enable acceleration controls, and I'm going to just checkbox that. Then I can see all of the different types of acceleration. Now when it comes to print acceleration, this is set to 3,000 right now, but this can go to 20,000. So I am going to type in 20,000. So these are some of the settings that I automatically am going to change. Now the last thing that I like to do when I'm messing with new settings, especially with some of these newer XY core machines, I want to do a Z hop. So then I'm going to go to my travel, then right here, retract at layer change, because I wanted to do a retraction. Then we're going to click that. Then when I come all the way down, I like to do a Z hop when retracted. So when we actually retract, we're going to do a Z hop. So when it's moving from part to part, even within the same model, it's going to do a little bit of a Z hop, and that is going to help us. If it's moving super fast, it's not going to knock the model in any way. So there we go. These are the stock settings that I change. And the last thing is I'm probably going to do my testing at a 0.2. So I'm just going to go ahead and click that. Then it's going to tell me, hey, these are all of the things that you changed. Do you want to keep them or discard them? So I am going to go ahead and keep these changes for my 0.2 draft test.
Okay, so that was the first method. Now let's move on to the second method, where I am going to basically alter an already existing profile that closely matches our 3D printer. So let's jump back into Cura and get this K1 Max set up in Cura.
So method 2 is a little bit different, and we're even going to, kind of push that when I say different, because we're going to be doing the Creality K1 Max. There is no profile for it. So if we go into Add Printer, we go to Non-Ultimaker Printer, then we come on down here to Creality 3D, we can see that there is no K1 Max here. And we need a K1 Max. They only have the CR line and the Ender line in Cura. So if you have one of the K1 printers, you're probably already aware of the Creality Print software. And I've honestly kind of grown a little fond of this because there's some things that I really like that I wish Cura had. But on the other side of that fence, there are quite a few things that this doesn't have that Cura does. And that's why we would want to jump over to Cura when it comes to slicing our models sometimes. So what we're going to do is we are going to find a printer that is really close in size to the actual K1 Max. So if we jump on over to Cura, if we look at the Ender 3 Max, it is actually really close to the size of our K1. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that one, and then I am going to rename this to the K1 Max. Then I'm going to add this as a printer. So now it is actually thrown in all of the defaults of a Ender 3 Max. And if we look here, it is honestly, it's pretty close. So we have a 300 by 300 build plate, but the height is actually 340. And on the K1 Max, it's actually just a 300 millimeter cube. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to 300. It is rectangular, and also it is a heated bed. We're going to use Marlin. Then if I'm looking through right here, I'm actually going to just leave these. And if we look at the gantry height, it is at 35 too. And when it comes to the number of extruders, it's still at 1. And then I am going to apply extruder offsets to G-code. So when I jump over here to my extruder 1, we can see that the material diameter is already set to a 1.75, and we're set. So if we come over to the printer, we're also going to look at all of these G codes right here. Now, this is the one thing that we have to change. And when it comes to the K1 specifically, it has some different things that we want to be applied in the G code. So let's go ahead and we're going to jump over to our Creality print, and we're going to bring up some of those settings. So all I'm going to do is come up here to Tool, Manage Printer, and then I'm going to click on that. Then I'm going to get all of these settings for my actual printer. And when this dialog pops up, I am going to just jump directly over to G-code, and you're going to see right here, here is the start G-code and the end G-code. This is the stuff we want. So when you actually select this, you can just hit Control-C and copy. But if you right-click and try to like get a drop down or anything like that, it doesn't work. And you know that you've got it copied if you hit like return and then you paste it again, and you can see it right there show up again. Now, all I'm going to do is jump back over to Cura. So if we jump on over here, so now I'm going to jump back over here to Cura, and then when it has the Start G-Code dialog box right here, I'm just going to select all of this and hit delete. Then I'm going to paste in my new G-code, and then we can see all of it right here. Then I'm going to jump over to Creality Print and do the same thing right here on the end, and just going to hit copy, then jump back over to Cura and select all of this, hit delete, then paste it in, and there we go. So now I have all of the G-code that the Creality actually needs. So this right here is got all of our settings that it is actually going to be looking for when it starts. So we're going to go ahead and click next, and then it's going to be all set. So now I have my calibration cube and I am ready to start printing. But now I want to go in and change some of the settings. Now, when it comes to the speed settings, that is what I'm specifically going to do, because let's just go ahead and slice this right now. This is going to take 38 minutes is what it says, because it is going to be going very slow at 50 millimeters a second. So let's speed this up. So I went ahead and jumped over to the Creality store and looked at the print specifications. And this is what I'm going to be looking at when I'm changing the settings. And this is really important. I would really recommend you guys looking at this when you're starting to mess with the settings. So when it comes to print speed, I know that it can print at 600 millimeters a second. Then when we're jumping over to our travel speed can be, then what we have to do is go to enable acceleration control. Then right here, my acceleration can be at 20,000. So when it comes to travel speed, I am going to set this to 700. And then we're going to go ahead and slice this again. Now when I slice it, it says it's going to take 34 minutes. So this says it's going to take 34 minutes. And this is the one thing about Cura, and this is honestly something that has always been. The time estimate when it comes to printing and slicing in Cura has never been super accurate. And I will say, since I have been using Cura for my XY core machines that are really fast, like the Flash Forge Adventurer 5M Pro, as well as my K1 Max, these two printers are wicked fast. And when I'm using Cura, I am not kidding, it has been wildly off, because I'm willing to bet that this is probably going to be 10 to 15 minutes to actually print, not 34. So it has been one of those things I have been just completely ignoring however long it tells me it's going to take. I just know when I see 34 minutes, it's not going to take anywhere near that long to print. So I use it as the absolute cap, and I know it's going to be done a lot sooner than that. So if you're doing these things, and with these new like printers, especially the XY core machine printers, you're going to find that these time estimates are way off.
Alright, so the last thing I just have to say before we leave is just remember, if you're using Cura and that printer is really optimized for another slicing software, you might not be printing as fast as you want it to be printing, and you might actually have to be printing it in that other software. I realize that some of these softwares are less than ideal. I mean, they've got some good features, but just give us Cura. Make sure it's optimized for Cura and make us all happy. That's what the manufacturers can do, honestly. And the last thing I want to let you know that I am really going to be messing with these settings in Cura for my K1 Max, because I feel like I can get this printer really optimized in Cura and get it probably printing just as fast. So I'm going to be doing that, and if I get it all figured out and fine-tuned, I will go ahead and create another video explaining all of the settings that I've changed and how I changed them. So until then, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will go ahead and I will see you in this next video right here.